Let me ask you something. How many budgeting apps do you have on your phone right now? One? Two? Maybe you downloaded three of them at different points in your life, each time thinking this one is going to be the one that finally fixes your relationship with money. You set up your categories, you link your bank account, you feel that little rush of excitement, that feeling of finally having your life together. You're tracking your coffee, you're tracking your groceries, you even created a separate category for miscellaneous because you're being serious this time. And then, 2 weeks later, you stop opening the app. Sound familiar? Here's the strange part. Studies show that people who actively use budgeting apps don't necessarily save more money than people who don't. Some research even suggests the opposite, that obsessive tracking can actually make your financial situation worse. Now that sounds completely backwards, right? How could something designed to help you be hurting you? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Because the problem isn't your discipline. It's not that you're bad with money. The problem might actually be the tool itself, and more specifically, what that tool is doing to your brain. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Zaki, and on this channel, we break down money, investing, and the psychology behind wealth in a way that actually makes sense. No complicated jargon, no boring lectures, just real ideas that help you think about money differently. If that sounds like your kind of thing, stick around. You're gonna like what's coming. Picture this. It's a Tuesday evening. You open your budgeting app and you see it. You've already gone $47 over your dining out budget for the month. You've got 2 weeks left to go. Now here's the question. What happens inside your head at that exact moment? For most people, one of two things happens. The first reaction is guilt. You feel like you failed. You feel like that number is evidence of some deep character flaw, that you're irresponsible, that you can't control yourself, that you'll never be good with money. And that guilt, it's exhausting. So you close the app, you tell yourself you'll deal with it later, and later eventually becomes never. The second reaction is even more interesting. Some people look at that number and think, well, I've already blown the budget, might as well make it count. So they go out for dinner again, because in their mind, the month is already ruined. Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the what the hell effect. It's the same reason people on diets who eat one cookie end up eating the whole bag. Once you feel like you've broken the rule, your brain kind of gives up on the rule entirely. And budgeting apps, as helpful as they seem on the surface, are actually perfectly designed to trigger this effect over and over. But to understand why, we need to talk about what money actually is and what budgeting apps accidentally turn it into. Here's something most people never think about. Money, at its core, is just a tool for making decisions. Every dollar you spend is a tiny vote for what matters to you. And managing money well isn't really about tracking numbers. It's about making better decisions in the moment. Now think about what a budgeting app actually does. It takes something that happens in the present, you deciding to buy a coffee or go out with friends or get that thing you've been wanting, and it frames it through the lens of the past. You already spent this much. Here's what you have left. Here's how you're doing compared to your goal. It's entirely backwards looking. It's a scorecard, not a compass. And there's a big difference between a scorecard and a compass. A scorecard tells you how you did. A compass helps you decide where to go. Most budgeting apps are incredibly sophisticated scorecards. They show you beautiful charts. They categorize everything automatically. They give you little insights like, you spent 23% more on food this month compared to last. Very impressive, very detailed. Almost completely useless for actually changing your behavior. Because by the time the app shows you that data, the decision has already been made. The money is already gone. You can't unbuy the coffee. So what are you actually learning? You're learning to feel guilty about past decisions, which doesn't help you make better future decisions. It just makes you feel worse about yourself. And here's where the psychology gets really interesting. There's a concept called decision fatigue. The idea is that every decision you make throughout the day drains a little bit of your mental energy. And when that energy runs low, the quality of your decisions gets worse. Budgeting apps actually increase your decision fatigue without you realizing it. Because now, on top of all the other hundreds of choices you make every day, you're also constantly monitoring, categorizing, and evaluating your spending. You're adding a layer of mental work to every single financial interaction you have. Buy a sandwich. Is this in my food budget? Get a haircut. Which category does this go in? Pay for parking. Is that transportation or miscellaneous? The mental overhead is enormous. And all that overhead doesn't make you more financially disciplined. It makes you more financially tired, which means when the real spending decisions come up, the important ones, you have less mental clarity to navigate them well.
But here's the deeper problem, and this one really gets at the root of why budgeting apps often fail. Most people think that the reason they struggle with money is a knowledge problem. They think if I just track my spending more carefully, if I just see the numbers more clearly, then I'll automatically make better choices. But that's not actually how human beings work. Think about smoking. Almost every smoker in the world knows that smoking is bad for them. They have complete information. The knowledge is there. But knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. The same is true with money. You already know that buying things you don't need is bad for your finances. You already know that saving more is better than saving less. More information, more tracking, more data, none of that addresses the actual reason people make poor financial decisions. And what is that actual reason? Emotions. Almost every impulse purchase, every overspending moment, every "I'll start saving next month" decision comes from an emotional place, not a logical one. You buy things when you're stressed. You spend more when you're bored. You justify big purchases because they feel like rewards for hard work. You avoid looking at your bank account because the anxiety of seeing low numbers is just too uncomfortable. Budgeting apps treat money like a math problem, but money is a psychology problem. And this is the fundamental mismatch that makes most budgeting tools ineffective for most people. There's actually a fascinating study done on lottery winners and accident victims. Researchers found that within a year or two, both groups tended to return to roughly the same level of happiness they had before. The lottery winners weren't much happier. The accident victims weren't much sadder. Because our baseline emotional state is incredibly powerful. It pulls us back to center. The same principle applies to financial habits. You can download the best budgeting app in the world, but if your underlying relationship with money, your emotions around it, your beliefs about it, your identity as someone who is bad with money, if none of that changes, then the app is just decorating the surface of a much deeper problem.
And hey, if you've made it this far, you're already thinking about money differently than most people. That's exactly the kind of content we make here every week. So if you don't want to miss the next one, hit subscribe. It's free, and it actually might be one of the better financial decisions you make today. So what should you do instead? Let me be clear. I'm not saying budgeting apps are evil. I'm not saying you should never track your spending. For some people, in certain situations, they genuinely help. But for most people, most of the time, there's a better approach. First, focus on systems, not tracking. The most financially successful people don't usually have elaborate tracking systems. They have simple, automatic systems. The most powerful one is something called pay yourself first. The idea is this: before you spend a single dollar on anything, food, rent, Netflix, anything, you automatically move a fixed amount into savings or investments. Not because you tracked your spending and had money left over, automatically, on the day your paycheck hits. When you do it this way, you're not relying on willpower. You're not relying on checking an app. The decision is already made. The money is already moved. You simply live on what's left. This single system does more for most people's financial health than any amount of app-based tracking. Second, address the emotion, not the number. Next time you're about to make a purchase that you know isn't quite aligned with your goals, don't ask yourself, is this in my budget? Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now, and is this purchase actually going to address that feeling? Because most of the time, spending is an emotional response to something: boredom, anxiety. the need for control, social pressure, recognition. And if you can name the emotion, you take away a lot of its power over your wallet. Third, use a friction system instead of a tracking system. Instead of tracking every dollar you spend, make the spending you want to reduce slightly harder to do. Delete the shopping apps from your home screen so you have to search for them. Set up a 24-hour rule for any purchase over a certain amount. You write it down and you wait a day before buying. Remove your credit card details from websites so you have to type them in manually every time. None of this involves a spreadsheet. None of it requires an app, but each of these tiny friction points gives your rational brain a chance to catch up with your emotional brain before the money's already gone. Because that's the real goal, not to perfectly track what happened, but to create small pauses that give you genuine choice in the moment. Here's the big takeaway. We live in a world that is obsessed with measurement. We track our steps, we track our sleep, we track our calories, and somewhere along the way, we decided that tracking our money would make us better with it too. But there's a difference between measuring something and understanding it. You can measure your spending down to the last cent and still have no idea why you keep making the same financial mistakes. You can have a perfectly color-coded budget and still feel completely out of control with money because the numbers are never really the problem. The real work, the work that actually moves the needle, is understanding your relationship with money. Where did your beliefs about money come from? What emotions drive your spending? What identity are you protecting when you make financial decisions? Those questions don't have a category in any budgeting app. The people who genuinely build wealth over time aren't the ones with the most sophisticated tracking systems. They're the ones who've built simple habits, automatic systems, and most importantly, a mindset that sees money as a tool they control, not a score that judges them. So, the next time you feel the urge to download another budgeting app, maybe pause for a second, not because tracking is wrong, but because it might be easier than actually doing the harder, more important work. Real financial change doesn't happen on a dashboard. It happens in your head, and that's a much more interesting place to start. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. The big idea I want you to take away from this video is simple. The problem was never the numbers. It was never the app. It was always the relationship, the one you have with money, with yourself, and with the decisions you make every single day. Work on that, and everything else gets easier. If this video gave you something to think about, share it with one person who needs to hear it. You'd be doing them a real favor. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and as always, keep building.